Hi, welcome to Story Circle. If you're returning, welcome back. I'm so happy you're here. And if you're new, hi, my name is Celeste. Here on Story Circle, I get to read your stories. If you ever have a story that you want me to read, feel free to check in the description about how you can submit your story. You know, the weather is actually warming up. I love winter, but I'm kind of ready for warm weather, and it's now starting to become a nice spring. And one thing I love about spring and summer are cookouts. It's the music, the food, and the good vibes from friends and family. One of our resident authors, Guy A. Sims, submitted a story about kind of one of these things, a cookout, but what he calls a boot stomp. And he's going to tell us about one of the biggest, mightiest boot stomps that has ever happened in the land. Thanks, Guy, for your story. So, sit down. Do I have a story for you? Today we are going to read The Mightiest Boot Stomp from Rife Powers and Other Too Tall Tales by Guy A. Sims. Whenever a person was to get married, had a baby, decide on moving to another part of the land, or anything worth celebrating, the whole town would get together and have a boot stomp. Now, a boot stomp was kind of like a dance, only better. Not only was there plenty of food and grand music, but the dancing was done in the heaviest boots the people owned. Most everyone believed that stomping on the ground as hard as you could with your boots on would shake up the good luck spirits. The boot stomp would go on for as long as the musicians could play, and most times they would play all night and well into the next day. Everyone loved a good boot stomp and looked forward to some event that would cause them to have one. On the evening of the departure of the Jumble family, the townfolk put together a mighty fine boot stomp. Friends and neighbors from close by towns came to join in the festivities. All had a grand time. The next afternoon, long after the musicians fell asleep, the Jumble family, Ma, Pa, and Junior, hitched up their wagon and headed west to find a new place to settle. They took the extra food from the boot stomp because they knew it would be a long trip to the other side of the land. What made the trip doubly long was that there was no road to take you straight across. Sad to say, there was a great mountain range that sat dead center in the land. Once a person got to the mountains, they had to go all the way around the mountain base until they reached the road that continued on the other side. It had been several days since the Jumble family started on their journey. They began to see the tips of the mountains that sat in the middle of the land on the horizon. As they neared it, Pa Jumble said, "Darn it all! We are going to lose 2 full days of travel if we go around these mountains." "Well, what do you suppose we do, Pa?" asked Ma Jumble as she chewed on an apple. "There ain't no road through the mountains, Pa," added Junior. Pa knew that there wasn't a road, so he decided that they would make one. Not only would it save time on their trip, but it would make it easier for the next group of travelers. The family agreed and proceeded to cut a path through the mountain once they reached it. The Jumble family worked hard cutting and marking a path through the mountainside. When they reached the highest peak, they felt that someone was watching them. Pa looked to the east. Ma looked to the west. Junior looked to the 4 tall hats that were coming from behind the rocks. Scared, the Jumble family hid behind their wagon. "Now y'all folks come out," bellowed the voice of a man. "Yeah, we see you there," screamed the voice of a woman. Pa Jumble looked out, and to his surprise was a family standing in front of their wagon, holding nothing but musical instruments. The father was holding a banjo. The mother was holding a fiddle. The older sister had a washboard, and the son held a horn. "We are the Mac Diddy clan and the owners of this here mountain," barked Pa MacDiddy.
That's right. We don't take kindly to strangers trampling through our hills,
snapped Ma MacDiddy.
So you better turn around and get off this mountain and go around like everyone else,
sneered the older sister.
Or else we'll make ya,
added the son. Pa Jumble just smiled. What could a family holding musical instruments do? Pa rounded up his family and began to move on until the older sister started tapping out a beat on her washboard. Next, the son started wailing on his horn. Ma MacDiddy joined in with her fiddling, and Pa MacDiddy laid it all down with his banjo. At first, the Jumbles laughed. They figured that the MacDiddies had been atop of this mountain for so long that they had believed their bad playing could scare them away. But then, Ma Jumble noticed her feet were tapping to the music without her telling them so. Next thing you know, she was dancing as wildly as the MacDiddies were playing. Pa Jumble and Junior were affected the same way. They were dancing and jerking like puppets on a string. The MacDiddies kept on playing, and soon the Jumbles were a-tumbling down the mountainside. Pa Jumble tumbled, Ma Jumble tumbled, even Junior Jumble tumbled all the way back down. Soon, all they could hear was the laughter of the MacDiddies. Dirty and sad, the Jumbles returned to the town. Soon after, they arrived back at the town. The Jumbles called for a town meeting. They told everyone about the MacDiddy clan and that something must be done. If not, then everyone who ever wanted to go out west would have no choice but to travel around the base of the mountains. The mayor asked if there were any volunteers to go and rid the mountains of the MacDiddy clan. But everyone was afraid. Finally, an old seamstress spoke up and suggested that the mayor get Rife powers to talk to the MacDiddy clan. Everyone agreed, and the next morning, the mayor set off to ask Rife powers for the favor. It didn't take the mayor long to convince Rife powers to go and see the MacDiddy clan. He loaned Rife one of his finest horses and wagon, as well as a sack of victuals for the ride. In a day or two, Rife reached the foot of the mountain range and began to make his way up to the foothills. Sometime later, he came to the highest point, found a strong, shady tree, and sat down to eat the victuals. It wasn't too long before he heard a bunch of footsteps coming in his direction.
You just better get up from that tree and get down from this here mountain.
Rife looked up and saw the MacDiddy clan.
This mountain seems like it's big enough for me to spread out and rest under this tree,
smiled Rife as he pretended to go to sleep.
You better do what Pa tells you, or else we'll have to make you.
Rife noticed that it was the Ma MacDiddy talking this time. He continued to act like he was asleep. Rife heard the daughter count to 3 and began tapping out a beat on her washboard. Next, the son started wailing on his horn. Ma MacDiddy joined in with her fiddling, and Pa MacDiddy laid it all down with his banjo. Rife felt his feet start tapping to the beat. Almost instantly, he was up and dancing. The MacDiddies began playing fast and furiously. Soon, Rife found himself tumbling down the mountainside and crashed into the mayor's wagon. When Rife returned to town, the news of his failure saddened everyone, especially the Jumble family. Rife told everyone to be patient, and he would think of something during the night. The next day, he called for a town meeting at noon. Everyone was curious to hear his plan.
I suggest we have a boot stomp,
Rife announced.
We don't have time for boot stomping. We are trying to get to the west.
Pa Jumble looked long and hard at Rife. Other folks were just as upset with Rife's suggestion.
Not just a boot stomp, but the mightiest boot stomp ever held. I want you to gather up your family and friends from all over. I want everyone to come with me to the mountain tomorrow.
Rife smiled as he turned to the mayor.
And don't forget to wear your heaviest boots.
The townfolk didn't know what to think, and the mayor told them to do as Rife said. The next day, Rife and the townfolk and all of their family and friends made their way to the mountain. They climbed the mountain and stood patiently after reaching the top. It wasn't long before the MacDiddy clan showed up fussing. They had never seen so many people on their mountain, so they started playing. The town folk heard the music and started dancing. The MacDiddy's fast and furious playing only made the people stomp extra hard. The people kicked up so much dirt and dust that the MacDiddy's played even faster. This made the people dance wildly. They slammed their boots so hard on the ground that pieces of the mountain began to break away. The MacDiddy's saw what was happening, but they couldn't stop playing. For 3 days, the music kept playing and the boots kept stomping. Finally, Pa MacDiddy could be heard shouting, "That's enough! I can't play anymore!" When the dust and dirt cleared, the people looked around and cheered. All the stomping had bust up the mountain so much that the land was now flat. Without the mountain, the cracks that were under the ground opened up a little to allow water from the north to flow to the south. Rife looked around, and much to his surprise, the MacDiddy's were nowhere to be seen. The only thing left were the busted instruments lying on the ground. Without the mountain, in the middle of the land, travel to the west became very popular. Even Rife decided on seeing what the west had to offer. This time, when Rife said goodbye to the townfolk, they decided just to have a big feast instead of a boot stomp. Rife understood exactly why. The end. Woo-wee! Could you imagine partying for 3 days? My feet would hurt. Thanks, Guy, for that fun story. A huge shout out and thank you to C.E.A.S for once again providing the music for today's episode. If you were toe tapping along to today's music, check out the description below on how you can hear more. Well, that's all I have for today. Join me next time as I read more of your stories on The Story Circle. See ya!